Hey everybody, it's Rebel Builder. I'm here in my Lego design studio, otherwise known as the corner of my basement that my wife never actually goes in. I know it's been a minute since I've made a video. Life has been pretty crazy the last couple of years, but especially the last 6 or 7 months. And you know, life just gets in the way sometimes, and that's really prevented me from building and making any YouTube videos. But during that time, one of my kind of mental escapes was thinking about being down here, thinking about building, thinking about making videos and interacting with you. So I'm ready to get back to building. I've already started building. I wanted to come up with a new challenge, something to really push myself, and also figure out a way to get back into sharing, you know, on YouTube, sharing with you guys. So what I'm going to do is start a new build series. As you can probably tell by the title of the video here, I am going to build a Minifigure Scale AT-M6, otherwise known as the All-Terrain Mega Caliber 6. This is something I've really been thinking about for quite a long time, probably a year and a half, going back to the very first time that they showed the vehicle on the Star Wars show on YouTube. I think back in August of 2017, they kind of teased us with pictures of the AT-M6 and then I think the Dreadnought too. And so really at the time, I was thinking about a new challenge and a new build back then. And I think I was actually thinking about building an AT-AT, and then this came along and my creative brain just grabbed a hold of it and said, yes, I want to build a Minifigure Scale AT-M6. Maybe this is a surprise to a lot of you. I've really been known as a TIE fighter builder. I kind of feel like I fell into getting popular for being a TIE fighter builder by accident. It started with my first TIE fighter and then the TIE Interceptor, my TIE Bomber. I'm still really proud of that build, and you know, it just kind of grew from there. And I also kind of fell into a little bit of a creative rut, you know, where I was kind of maybe had the idea I would just kind of take the same design and change the wings. And, you know, I think along the way I made some really cool builds, which I'm really proud of. I'm kind of looking at my shelf here where I have a lot of them still. But for me to grow as a builder and as a YouTuber and, you know, just to satisfy my creativity, I need to build something else. And honestly, the AT-M6, I mean, I think it's an amazing looking vehicle. I think it's menacing. I think it's a really great new take on the Imperial Walker. But this project also scares me. It scares me a lot. I kind of wake up at night thinking about it, wondering how I'm going to pull it off. There's a lot of engineering challenges to it. It's just the sheer size. Is it going to stand up? But I think that's good. I think that's a healthy, good way of being scared, that, you know, I'm kind of nervous. Am I going to pull this off? But here I am going forward. But I mentioned I was really inspired by this thing, and then, you know, I saw it on The Last Jedi, you know, inspiration is important with builds. I know a lot of you have just have made good suggestions, you know, on my videos over the years, and believe me, I have a list of different ships and just different TIE fighters alone that I could be building those for a very long time. But I think as a builder, you really need to be inspired. You need to have something that really just kind of grabs hold of you. And, you know, my brain isn't letting this thing go. It's been a year and a half and I'm still kind of obsessed with this thing. I'm still thinking about it. I'm collecting parts still. So I really think that honestly, I won't be able to build anything else until I finish this thing. All this time I've had pictures hanging in my cubicle at work. I've been daydreaming, but I've been gathering source material, which is one of the main things that I'll talk about in this video. I'm going to show you some pictures and information and a couple of little models that I've collected, really trying to gather the most accurate form of material that I can. It also means I've collected a ton of dark bluish gray parts. I'm sure there will be many Bricklink orders throughout the course of this thing. So in this video, we're going to talk about source material, and we're also going to talk about minifigure scale. Now, I understand minifigure scale is going to be something that's debated. There's not like a real hard and fast rule about it. But I'm going to show you what I came up with. I know there's other builders that kind of use more or less the same kind of math to come up with their minifigure scale, so I'll talk about that. So you also won't actually see any building in this video. I have started building it. I've got a start on the body, I've started on the feet and stuff, but I just want to get you started with what this project is going to be. Source material, minifigure scale, and then the second episode will show you kind of what I've started, what I've got built. And that brings up another question of schedule. I would really love it to say I would come back every Saturday or whatever and have a new video for you. You know, I just can't promise that. I will put out a new video when I actually have some progress to show, something actually worth talking about. So the schedule and how often is going to vary. But my intention here is to take you along on this process. I consider Lego building and mock building a very creative, artistic process. You know, I'm almost philosophical about it, maybe a little weird about it, but you know, I'm going to take you on these steps along the way, and I'm going to show you some failures, some setbacks, and hopefully, you know, progress going forward. And I don't know how long this will take. I don't know if this will take a year. Maybe I'll have it done in 3 months. It just depends on how much time I'm going to get to build, and you know, there's a lot of factors in that. I do have a family, I have a full-time job, and it doesn't leave me a lot of time to build, but I do build when I can. And maybe I squeeze in a few smaller builds along the way. I have a couple of ideas, some small ideas, and I kind of keep those on a list for times when I get stuck, maybe I get frustrated. And I think it's healthy to kind of, you know, redirect your brain, like when you're trying to solve a problem, and, you know, you can just keep hammering on it, but I think it's best to kind of give it a different problem to solve, and then kind of you've got another part of your brain over here that is working in the background, and sometimes that figures that thing out. I've really had that happen. I think it's kind of amazing. So we'll probably see, you know, some smaller videos along the way too. So like I said, in this video, we're going to start with what minifigure scale is. I'm going to show you some source material, and I think from there, I've started working on the body. I think that's kind of what my first focus is, because I've decided that if I don't have the right proportions or the right ratio of what that body is, you know, the legs and stuff aren't going to matter. So we'll probably see some of the body in my second episode, but I think that's it. I hope you all follow me along on this journey. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be something new for me. You know, maybe a lot of you, this is the first time you've actually seen my face. So yes, this is what I look like. This is my basement. This is where I do all my building. You can see all my drawers. And perhaps at some point, especially if you're interested, I'll do a studio tour. I've got my collection parts, and this is where I film videos. I also want to give a couple of nods to some of the other AT-M6 builders out there. I know Noah at Integral Bricks, formerly CP Gamers, he has done one. Peter Brookdale, otherwise known as Cave God, he's built kind of the most famous AT-AT. He has started one. I think he kind of fizzled out on it. He did build the foot and hasn't done much after that. I think his intention was to build it in the same scale with his AT-AT, and it was going to be like 4 feet tall. Maybe it scared him a little bit. But then Rich Boy Jay has built one. I know him and I really agree on the scale of it, and I'm a big fan of him and his channel, and he's one of my favorite Lego YouTubers. So I just, you know, I'm not trying to compete against Rich Boy Jay. I think he's a great guy. He's a great builder. I'm a big fan, and I just kind of want to do my own take on it. So other than that, I'm excited to show you what I got. So let's get started. Okay, let's start by talking about minifigure scale. Now, this is not like a real true scale. There's not a hard and defined rule. This is just what I come up with, and it seems to be pretty common amongst other builders. But first, you have to start with the size of a minifigure or a real person. So I've got 3 figures here, So in real life, there's a lot of variation with how tall people are. Obviously, you know, Mark Hamill is 5'9", Daisy Ridley is 5'7", and then Adam Driver is 6'2", but the minifigures are the same size. So what I did is I kind of took a kind of an average and just kind of came up with 5'10" is what I'm going to kind of assume that a minifigure is, you know, to scale. So like a minifigure represents 5'10". You measure an actual size of a minifigure, and I came up with 1 11/16 of an inch. And that kind of works out to be in feet, 0.14 feet. And then you do some research online with how big the AT-M6 actually is. There's like this book that has some good information, and it says the AT-M6 is 36.2 meters or 118.7 feet. And so really it's just a ratio of, you know, 0.14 to 118.7. So if you do the math here, you get a scale of 0.024. That is the ratio between 5'10" and 1 11/16 of an inch. So then you take your 118.7 feet times 0.024, and then you get 2.86 feet, or 34.3 inches. So 34.3 inches is what I came up with for how big the AT-M6 is going to be, all assuming, you know, a certain height of the minifigure. You know, you could play with different heights. You know, you change, you know, 5'10" to 6 foot, or say 5'6". You know, that playing with that size is going to change the scale. But in general, 34.3 is what I came up with. I know Rich Boy J's AT-M6 is about that same size too. So we seem to kind of agree on what minifigure scale actually is. So one of the first things I found was a poster for the AT-M6. And I've made a small printout of the whole poster here. But what I initially started with was taking this, and I actually enlarged this blueprint here to be 34 inches tall, and that's what I was going to use to build. I also collected some other things, like I've got this model, and then, you know, I've got like all the little Lego sets that they did, and of course I have, you know, the actual AT-M6 official Lego set. And these were the initial things that I could find, and as time went on, as The Last Jedi hit Blu-ray and more material came out, more pictures, I discovered some things about this. And this model specifically, you can see that these two designs match. But as time went on and I got better source material, I realized that this and this were not accurate. We can just point out a few things, like you see this shoulder piece here, you know, this little shelf that it has. This really sits right above here, and some of the wing or the leg geometry is wrong, and some of the details back here. So I was kind of thrown for a loop on that, and I started collecting more things. So I got rid of all this stuff, and I started collecting more pictures. So I have pictures like this and this. Now what these are a replica that they put together for the world premiere, and I don't know how tall this actually was, you know, maybe 20 feet tall or something. But then, you know, you really look at some of the details, and then you start comparing them to what we actually see in The Last Jedi. This is actually a good representation of what we actually saw in the movie. Some other things I've collected is I have a ton of these pictures here. And this is a model, pictures of a model that are at the Disneyland launch bay, if you've ever been there. You know, they kind of have, it's almost like a museum. And I haven't seen this in person, but there's a guy online I found that took all these pictures, and you study these, especially here, and then you compare it to what we see in The Last Jedi, is that this is accurate. This matches this. I've done lots of research as far as following model builders and concept artists, that have worked with Lucasfilm and worked on these movies. And kind of what I've discovered is, we have this version in the movie, and this is a 3D model that they, built in the computer at Industrial Light and Magic. And then this is something that they built after the fact, and this is probably a 3D printed version of a 3D asset that they get from Industrial Light and Magic. Once I was able to start to gather some of these pictures, I was able to get a more accurate idea of what was going on. Another great source was Battlefront 2. Some great shots of the head. And again, I think the same model in Battlefront 2 probably came from the same digital asset from Industrial Light and Magic. I'm very confident that these things match exactly. You got screenshot from the video game, and then you've got an actual screenshot from the movie, and they seem to match. Now, the next thing I was able to find after just doing more research online is this little model. I mean, this thing is tiny. It's 3 inches tall or something. And this is actually a model kit. I'd have the model cement to put it together, and I think this came all the way from Japan. But this, again, is an accurate representation of what we saw in the movie. It matches this. And so what I was able to do from this is I took a pretty good picture of this, and then at work I use a CAD program every day. So I was able to bring a really good picture of this into my CAD program, scale it up to be 34 inches, and that kind of gave me this giant blueprint that I'm able to work off of. So I know all of my proportions and angles and angle breaks and the size of the legs and size of the head and the width. All of that, based on this, based on my research, is going to be pretty accurate. And I'm trying to make it as close as I can to that kind of data. And I know, trying to make it as close to this, getting these proportions right, getting sizes right, is what's really going to make this model actually work. So this is what I actually ended up with. This is my build table. It's a mess. I got parts everywhere. But I did want to show you that this is the blueprint that I'm working off, in a large picture of that little model. And you can see some of the lines on here I've kind of traced in my CAD program to give me, accurate sizes and stuff, especially like the angle breaks here and things like that. And here's an 8x8, tile here, just so you can kind of get some perspective, some size idea of really how big of a monster I'm working with. Okay, just to close out the video here, we talked about minifigure scale, we talked about source material, you saw my big blueprint here, that's right behind me here, and this is where I do all my building. I've got my parts here, this is my creative space. I love being here. I just sometimes come down here and sit if I just have a few minutes, because it just kind of energizes me to be around all these parts. So I would just say, if you want some sneak peeks, follow me on Instagram. Twitter and Facebook are mostly going to be like notifications when I have new videos. But if you want to see little progress shots in between videos, that would be a good place to look. If you already follow me, you know that I have posted a couple of things already. But other than that, I hope you all come along this journey with me. It's a new direction for me and my channel. And I hope you all are enjoying it, and I hope you support me along the way, and I really appreciate it. So just want to say thanks for watching, everybody. I look forward to chatting with you in the future in the comments, and I'll be back soon.